Okay, so for today's GeoChat, we have Alex Fraps. And what is your job title?
Right. So my job title right now is just geoscientist.
Geoscientist, and who is your employer?
I work for the Norwegian Geotechnical Institute in Houston.
Okay, and what areas of geoscience do you use in your current job?
So mostly sedimentology. I work with a lot of cores and geohazard studies, but it's mostly sedimentology as opposed to igneous or metamorphic, if that makes sense.
Do you have a specialization?
It's soils. So you look at the physical properties of soils and stratigraphy of them if we were doing core work. So it's a specialization.
When did you first get interested in geoscience?
Let's see, that's probably back when I was in community college. I was interested in meteorology. Went to the Texas A&M Department of Meteorology and just kind of found out, I was like, oh, maybe this really isn't for me. But I wanted to stick to the sciences. So that spring break, we went to the Grand Canyon with my family. I was like, this is really kind of interesting. Let's give geology a shot. So I took a Geology 101 class. I did really well in it. I was engaged. The material was interesting. And yeah, I decided to go forward with that. And I'm happy I did.
What university degrees have you earned?
So I got my bachelor's from Texas A&M University and my master's from good UTSA.
And how was your journey through university? Was it continuous? Did you take a break at some point?
It was more or less continuous. So I graduated with my bachelor's in the fall. And then I didn't go, so I took spring and summer off, but had applied and was accepted to UTSA. And then I started my master's at UTSA in the next fall, 2016.
And what made you decide to go back to get your master's?
It was my understanding that getting a master's will enrich yourself as a scientist. You learn more skills and more hands-on with research. That you can do that in bachelor's, certainly, but also it does help with opening career options. And I just feel overall well-rounded as a geoscientist that I have my master's.
And how did you choose your current career pathway?
I was looking on Indeed. I saw that there was an option for a soils lab technician, and they had given a description that I was very familiar with, like sieving. I was like, oh, I did that in the river science lab. I applied just to see what happened, and boom, they came back and we had an interview, and I started working there. And I got to apply some of the skills that I learned from the river science lab to here.
And what steps led you to where you are now in your career?
Let me get my pen. So, right, from the beginning, I got my bachelor's at A&M University, and I began my professional geoscientist licensure, where you take the fundamentals of geology test. I also was starting my master's at the same time. Once I got my master's, I was started here at NGI doing data entry while I was finishing my master's, sorry. Once I got it, I was promoted to soils lab technician, where we run various tests like sieving, hydrometers, Atterberg limits, just getting physical properties of marine soils. And then I would also do geology work, geoscience work is what they call it. So we would get cores from offshore, split them open, describe them, integrate them with lab work to get an overall picture of what's going on. Recently, I obtained my professional geoscience licensure in the state of Texas. And then I got promoted to geoscientist full time. So I'm not so much in the lab as I was. So that's kind of my journey to where I am right now.
And what do you view as the most important component of your background that facilitated your career trajectory, like a training or qualification?
Yeah, I would contribute both my master's degree and PG licensure as big development points.
Okay, and in your work now, what kind of activities fill up your day or your work day?
Well, so currently, we just finished off a core logging job where we split open cores, we describe them, what we see. That's an all-day thing. We try to do about 8 to 10 cores. So you split them open, you write down the color, you take measurements, you do a sketch, you put your finger in the core and swipe it, smear it, look at it, describe what you see. So like, I see clay with forum, I see silty clay. We've been trained on that. So that's when we're actually doing core logging. After the core logging, we have to, and we take a photo. So once we're done with all that, I will take those photos and edit them as necessary, kind of brighten them or crop them to where it's even. The other things, meetings, we have professional meetings like, hey, we're about to start a new job, here's what's expected. We'll have client meetings with clients, updating with our progress on different projects. I do a lot of computer work. So as I mentioned, we write down descriptions for cores. Well, I got to type those in and we can produce a digital log and use them as deliverables for clients. Occasionally I do go into the lab. Every now and then I'll have to use the microscope to get a better picture of what we're looking at. There might be something unusual in a sample in the lab, and I'll take it and look at it under the microscope. Let's see what other microscope work. Yeah, we've had a unusual amount of sediment called glauconite, and we just wanted to make sure it's really glauconite and how much there is. So I've done quite a bit of microscopy work for that. Yeah, that's it. My workday can be pretty variable. Depends on what's going on.
Right. Okay, and how has the activities in your workday evolved over time? So with your promotions.
Right, so like I mentioned in the beginning, I was just doing data entry for the lab. Sit at a computer, and it was part-time too. I would get the data sheets, enter the data, make sure it looks good, alert my supervisor if something was out of the norm, fairly standard. Once I got the master's, I started working in the lab where it's a lot of standing, moving around, running tests. I mainly did hydrometers, sieving, Atterberg limits, getting densities and soil descriptions of our samples. And then there would sometimes be in between geoscience work. So with the core logging and microscopy. And now that I'm full geoscientist, it's just core logging, computer work, and some microscopy still.
Okay, and what are some geoscience related tools that you use in your work?
We use basic software like, Microsoft 365, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, all that fun stuff. We also use ArcGIS to create maps and visualize data. Kingdom, we just got some licenses and we're going to be starting a training program soon for that. What else? Software. We use other software to create those digital core logs. Yeah, I think those are the main tools that we use.
And what kind of analyses do you perform in your work?
A lot of the time it's graphs, charts. I haven't really seen much statistics. Maybe the engineers work more with that, but a lot of it is graphing, maps, and assessing data like that.
What new skills have you gained in your career since completing your education?
Well, I definitely sharpened my skills in sedimentology, describing sediment and cores, looking at using microscopy to assess percentages and identifying materials. I've also started to learn Python. So there's some program. I'm not expert at it, but it definitely has helped us and me since being here. Definitely, brushed up skills with Excel, overall general data analysis. So those kind of skills that definitely developed since.
What other STEM disciplines are applied in your work?
I'd say mostly chemistry and physics. Like I mentioned, physics of soils, water content, density, mass, volumes. Chemistry, sometimes we test for carbon and how much carbon is in this sample. The client needs to know. I think we've done some pH tests. I haven't done those personally, but I know we do. So yeah, physics and chemistry mainly.
And what courses or skills do you recommend to students wanting to work in your area of geoscience?
I definitely would recommend some sort of computer programming language. Python is really easy for beginners and user-friendly, but it's not the only language out there. Geophysics would be helpful. We do look at sub-bottom profile data every now, well, a lot actually, not every now. Advanced stratigraphy helped me out. I found myself going back to old notes, making sure, getting down vocab and concepts, processes. Soil science, definitely a big help, because we're a soil lab. I guess oceanography would help too, since we're marine related. I would also urge all the students try to get a professional geoscientist license. It definitely helps with the job career, but it also makes you well-rounded. It's not only just to get a better job or higher pay, it's to enrich your knowledge and skills as a geoscientist. So those are my main recommendations. Oh, and ArcGIS. Take at least the basic and advanced classes. You don't have to get a certification, that would help, but I recommend basic and advanced GIS classes. So those are I know that was kind of a bit of a list, but that's what I came up with. Hindsight.
Okay, and then what job interview advice do you have for students?
Probably practice in the mirror, or practice with someone you know, a friend or a colleague, family member. Practice with another body. There's a plethora of questions out there on the internet that you can look up, interview questions that you can look up and practice your answers. It's hard to say which ones are, obviously, which ones they're going to ask, but just getting into the mindset of, I may be asked this, how will I respond? What kind of question will I be asked? Should I respond? And just getting comfortable with responding and feeling like it's more of a conversation rather than you're being under the microscope. They're not there to, it's just a conversation, not a judgment.
Right. Okay. So with with your work, do you look at the cores with other employees? Do you have a team that you're working with?
Yes. Typically there's 3 people. Someone will open the core, another will photograph it and log, and another person will also log as well. So there's definitely collaboration. Sometimes you may get a sample, well, it could be this, well, it could be that. And this is a good time to collaborate with your colleagues. I don't think geoscience should be done alone, or science in general. It's definitely a team effort.
So you guys rotate these tasks, or it depends on the project given?
Yes.
And then, so with ArcGIS, what is the scale of the maps that you guys are working with or producing?
I don't know exact volume off the top of my head, but it's more regional. So like, here's a region of this coastal area. It's not exactly India, I suppose. But I'm just starting to work with maps right now that I got promoted. So I need to brush up on my skills, which there's plenty of training out there.
And then you mentioned Python too. What exactly do you use Python for, or you've been training to use it?
So for Python, we've mainly used it to do some sediment analysis. My colleagues came up with an interesting program that can take the color of, say, glauconite, which is green, and then we can use that to analyze the percentage of glauconite content in a sample. So it's like, all right, this is the color range that we find glauconite. Then we run the program and it'll come back, okay, this green was green, this green was green, da, da, da. So this percentage, this estimated percentage is glauconite. It's really interesting. We've also used it, Python, for data analysis with Excel, big Excel sheets. Let's see what, and I'm sure the engineers use it for other matters.
When you get the core samples, that's when you guys go down to a lab to work with those, or do you go where the cores are?
We get the cores delivered to us, and we have a warehouse in the back of our building. And inside that warehouse is another room where we open and look at the cores.
And are the cores sent from an outside company?
Yes. So a third party will go and get the samples and then bring them to us. And then we'll send those to get x-rayed, and then they come back to us, and then we start opening and analyzing.
Okay. How did you prepare to get your professional geologist licensure?
Yeah, so typically when we go bachelor's, getting your bachelor's and graduating with a geology degree, we think of the career paths. Oh, yes. Okay, so first question. Right, we think environmental route, academia, or oil and gas. If you want to go down the environmental route, which is what I initially wanted to do, I see some questions. I'll get to them. If you want to do environmental route in land-based geology, that's working with the public, and so you definitely need a licensure for that to be able to sign off on geological reports. I didn't know exactly what I was going to be doing in the future. I just wanted to keep my options open. So I was like, well, let's go ahead and take the fundamentals of geology exam, which is anything and all things geology related. It's a 4-hour test, study for it, take it, and then you pass it, you get your geoscientist in training. Then you work with geoscience work for a few years. And then you can apply for your professional geoscientist, the actual license. So you have to take another test, which is much more involved and more practical exam. So I took it, passed it, then you get your licensure. And then you have to take continuing education units. I think it's 15 hours. And then you can keep renewing your license.
Okay. The first question in the chat is, can you give us an idea of the range of project topics your core work contributes to?
So mainly it's been geohazards related. Say maybe someone wants to build a structure or a wind farm or something out in the ocean. Well, we can't just start building. You have to take samples. We have to look for geohazards. So that could be landslides, rock marks, hard grounds, uneven seafloor. So for example, one project I worked with, they wanted to know, hey, when was the last underwater landslide? So took some samples, we did some analysis, we took some age dates, and concluded like, no, the landslide was not old enough to be a threat to be reactivated. So it's kind of some of the scope of the work we do with core logging. Mainly just geohazards right now.
Another question, do you store the analyzed cores at your company for future reference on a project, or do they go back to the company that sent them to you?
We store them for a while. I don't think we've had to go back and refer many times. Occasionally it happens. So we do have a storage unit. But after a certain time, the client will be like, all right, well, we don't need these anymore. And then don't have them anymore. So rarely do we go back for reference.
Another question, what is the potential for additional promotions in your company?
Additional. I'm not sure, honestly. I think just if they see you growing and you go to them and talk to them like, hey, how can I? I'm sure they'll work something out, but
For continuing education on your professional geologist licensure, is it an annual CE requirement?
yes, it's annual. So I have to get 15 hours of professional development hours every year.
And where do these hours come from?
So you can go to webinars, conferences, you can do self-studies, as long as they improve and work towards your skill development as a geoscientist. So like I watched a webinar the other day about landslide investigation, phase 1 analyses, ethics. One of them has to be ethics. So.
Okay, with your job search experience, before you secured your position at your current job, did you apply for other positions?
Yes. So there's been a lot of, I'm trying to remember back. There were some about staff, entry-level staff geoscientists. Forgot what companies they were from. There were a few, but I was, at that time, I was doing my job search. I was more focused on my working and finishing my master's degree. But every now and then I would have looked in the job board. But it was mainly just entry-level geoscientist positions or lab technician positions. And I got one of them.
Oh, where did you look for these positions?
I looked at Indeed.com. I think that's a really good website to look for. It's not the only one, but it worked for me. They have a neat feature that will alert you when, oh, you're looking for this kind of job. We found so-and-so offering a job similar to what you're looking for. That was really handy. LinkedIn would be a good idea too. Networking, word of mouth, but for me, Indeed was a really good and helpful job search engine.
And when you were searching for a job, were you looking for a job in your area, in your like geographical area, like where you live?
Yes, I was sticking to Houston.
Oh, do you have any advice about creating a good resume for a job search?
Resume. I would say look at model resumes on the internet. Maybe take UTSA. I did take a very short course on resume writing. I would say try to keep it to one page. Use clear and concise points. Don't try to make it look too fancy. I've seen people use different fonts and colors, and it's pretty distracting. HR, who are the people that look at the resumes, have so much time, and they shouldn't have to be distracted by it. So keep it to one page, concise, neat looking. Also, see if you can find a resume workshop or look at some model resumes somewhere on the internet. And if you learn a new skill, go back and update your resume.
So in your day-to-day work, do you spend more time in the office or lab?
It's mostly in the lab. I mean, sorry, no, it's mostly in the office right now.
Okay. What is one key piece of advice you would give to students on their education experience and or career?
I would say keep your options open. Know what you have in mind, but don't narrow it so down to that's the only thing I'm gonna want. That's the only thing I want. Everything else is not applicable, because I didn't know I was going to be work in a soil science lab and become a geoscientist, but I wanted to keep my options open to not just environmental geology or just oil and gas. So my advice would be keep your options open.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good point to end the GeoChat at. I don't have any further questions. Is there anything that you would like to share with students wanting to become a geoscientist?
You're gonna get the amount of work you put in it will come back to you. So work hard, collaborate with others. Don't just do it all by yourself. I'm a big fan of teamwork. Try to get your professional geoscientist licensure. Technically, I don't use mine right now, but it's good to have under the belt. God forbid I should change jobs or something. So yeah, just teamwork, try to get your licensure, keep your options open, and work hard.